All right, let's go back to the phone lines here. Thomas in North Belmore. Thomas, you're on the line.
Thomas,
go ahead, Thomas. You're on.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, I understand you're a gun owner. Do you think that we can do more than we do now here to try and stop the guys like you see on your screen here from having things like assault weapons?
Well, I honestly don't believe that guns are the problem. I think the fact of there's a lot of mental issues with people who possibly can get their hands on guns. And I think I don't mind background checks for people with mental issues to get guns, but that would be the most. But you can't tell just everybody you cannot own them.
Well, here's the problem, though, Thomas. I understand your point, and you make sense. Except this guy was a PhD candidate. I mean, bright enough that he was getting, I think, 20, 30 grand a year just in stipends. I mean, he was not a rocket scientist, but something approaching it. And obviously, he snapped along the way. Now, while some people saw some troubling signs, including a guy at a range here where he was shooting, in the end, he just snapped. So while I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer, I do say when you're trying to buy the amount of ammo that he was, when you're trying to buy the kind of gun that he ended up buying, at least one of them, that at least mitigates what he could do. The only reason he stopped firing at 100 was his gun jammed. Okay, let's go to Trevor calling us from Far Rockaway. Trevor, you're on the line.
Okay, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Oh, yes, I believe our forefathers carried guns. Now, if people would have had guns in the movie theater, this wouldn't have never happened. We forget that people are unpredictable. You never know. Anything could happen.
You're right, Trevor, but I can tell you this argument's come up quite a few times. And do you remember when Gabby Giffords, the Arizona congresswoman, was shot and others were killed fatally in that shooting in Tucson? There were people, at least one in particular, had a gun. In fact, he drew his gun. And he said afterwards he almost shot the person, mistaking it for the gunman, and actually tackled the gunman, Jared Loeffner. So, and it's happened before. Now imagine for a moment, just for a moment, that evening in Aurora, people had guns in the theater. And for all I know, they might have. But let's assume one person did. You have tear gas going on in a theater. You have gunfire coming from the screen. This was the Batman movie, after all. And a person in that haze is going to begin opening fire. Can you imagine how many more people would have been shot potentially? Now, he might have killed the gunman, but the odds are, with everything else that was going on, it probably wouldn't have worked out that way. But I just want to get this. Now, I want to go around real.
Reservoir Dogs. That's
Richard, in your lifetime, I mean, there's some things we thought wouldn't have happened, including a black president, gay marriage,
I knew
etc.
all those things would happen.
Of course you did. Do you think there'll ever be middle ground on this issue? I thought after a few incidents that we saw, like Columbine for one, there'd be more.
An upsurge of reactionary right-wing politics in this country that's included things like gun control, that has, with the Tea Party and others, framed the national debate in ways that they are now ascendant. That will come back. And there will be a return to the traditional American views about guns, which gives them a special place, but does not allow people to buy.
I wish that Richard was right. Newsflash. But it's not going to happen. The right and conservatives control the Republican Party. They're going to push for less restriction on guns. This is going to keep, sadly to say, it's going to keep happening over. And the only way it'll change is if one of their children are the ones that shot in the massacre. That's the only way it'll change.
Forbid.
Congressman?
I don't agree with what Dominic said. I think that the problem is solvable in some respects. Different states have different laws. Richard hasn't told us how New York has legislated, but I can tell you that Connecticut has legislated against assault weapons. Connecticut, in my recollection, has not had a situation like this. We do not have the same sort of gun sales that they have in other parts of the country.
I'll give you the last word on Sandra. We're going to break.
There's still a social attachment that people have to guns. They feel like it's part of who they are, part of their heritage. Some people. And also, I think the Second Amendment scares a lot of people into thinking, well, it must be okay because it's right there, instead of thinking about it objectively.